Will the sergeants please prepare the chambers and bring in the absent members? Clerk will call the roll.
Adams, Amiano, Anderson, Arambula, Bell, Bill Berryhill, Tom Berryhill, Blakesley, Block, Blumenfield, Brownlee, Buchanan, Caballero, Calderon, Carter, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Cotto, Davis, De La Torre, De Leon, DeVore, Duvall, Emerson, Ing, Evans, Fuhr, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Fuller, Furutani, Gaines, Galgiani, Garrick, Gilmore, Hagman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Krikorian, Liu, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mendoza, Miller, Monning, Nava, Nastande, Nilo, Nilsson, John Perez, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Price, Ruskin, Solis, Saldana, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Strickland, Swanson, Torlikson, Torres, Tarico, Tran, Valines, Yamada. Madam Speaker.
Members, a quorum is present. We asked our guests and visitors in the back of the chambers and in the gallery to stand, and we will ask Assemblymember Isidore Hall to lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Lord God, the light of your presence, lead all humankind to truth, justice, liberty, and freedom. Grant us a share in the light of your countenance by guiding me and my fellow legislators in fair and wise laws for the greater good of the people of the great state of California. In your name we pray. Amen.
We asked our guests and visitors to remain standing, and we asked Assemblymember Ng to lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Wednesday, May 20, 2009. The Assembly met at 7 a.m. Honorable Bonnie
Tirico
Lowenthal.
moves, Mr. Blakesley seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentation of petitions, there are none. Introduction and references of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions. Mr. Tirico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, members. Without objection, we'll allow Assemblymember Skinner to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to allow Assemblymember Brownlee, Assemblymember Duvall, Assemblymember Logue, Assemblymember Salas, and Assemblymember Skinner to personally adjourn in memory of individuals today.
I would add Assemblymember Hall without objection.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to refer AB 1086 by Mr. Miller and AB 1119 by Dr. Emerson from the Appropriation Committee to second reading.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, at the request of the authors, please remove the following bills from the consent calendar. File Item 167, AB 456 by Dr. Emerson. File Item 177, AB 824 by Ms. Harkey. File Item 184, AB 1015 by Mr. Torlakson. And File Item 197, AB 1397 by Mr. Hill.
Clerk will note.
Madam Speaker, at the request of Mr. Blakesley, please remove the following bills from the consent calendar. File Item 195, AB 1369 by Mr. Davis. File Item 204, AB 1503 by Mr. Liu. And File Item 202, AB 1470 by Ms. Evans.
Clerk will note.
And finally, Madam Speaker, at the request of the author, please send File Item 119, AB 689 by Mr. Calderon to the inactive file.
Clerk will note. Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. We have some very special guests in the chamber today. We have with us, well, before I indicate who, Great Britain and British companies play a key role in California's economy, employing thousands of Californians and importing more than $5 billion in California goods annually. Beyond commercial ties, Britain remains one of our country's closest allies. In recognition of this important relationship, it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce three members of the British Parliament who have joined with us today. These members are members of the British Environmental Audit Committee, and they are visiting California to learn about the role of carbon markets in preventing climate change. And later today, they'll be visiting the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories in my district in Berkeley. Please help to welcome our very special guests, the Honorable Timothy Yeo, Chairman of the Committee, the Honorable Colin Challen, and the Honorable Ian Liddell Granger. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Skinner. Assemblymember Brownlee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to introduce some very special guests that are visiting the Capitol today from my district. Chris Jennings, who's a quintessential teacher in the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District, and her 4th grade class from Point Dume Marine Science Elementary School. Welcome to our chambers today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brownlee. Members, I have noticed the presence of former Assembly Member John Laird, who is on the floor with us today. I think we should all give him a welcome. Let him know how we miss him. Members, will move to second reading.
Assembly Bill 267, 653, 806, 15 with amendments, 79 with amendments, 676 with amendments, 765 with amendments, 1028 with amendments, 1265 with amendments, 1486 with amendments, and Assembly Bill 1361.
Motions and resolutions?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I request unanimous consent to allow Mr. Portantino to take up file item 11, AB 1361 by Mr. Portantino, without reference to file for the purpose of third reading today.
Mr. Portantino, are you ready to take that up?
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
Clerk will read. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1361 by Assemblymember Portantino and others, an act relating to vehicles and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and in particular, thank you, Madam Speaker, for in the middle of this tragedy. I don't know if you all remember, but the father and daughter that was tragically killed on the Route 2 highway last month. In the middle of the tragedy, I received a text message from the Speaker wishing me well and wishing the constituents well. So I want to say particularly thank you for showing an interest in this issue. AB 1361 is a district bill which seeks to prohibit potentially dangerous vehicles from State Route 2. On April 1st, a tragic accident occurred in my district when a double-decker truck hauling cars experienced brake failure and plowed through an intersection and into a bookstore, killing a father and his 12-year-old daughter. In response to this event, as well as other similar incidents in the past, and just 2 weeks ago, a third truck had a similar accident on this very same road, Caltrans called for a 90-day ban on 5-axle trucks to allow the legislature time to enact a permanent ban. Now, Caltrans' actions was in response to the city of La Cañada Flint Ridge, who has repeatedly asked for such a ban. Specifically, AB 1361 bans vehicles with 3 or more axles or vehicles weighing more than 5 tons from using State Route 2 between Big Pine Highway and Highway 210 in La Cañada Flint Ridge. The bill also provides exemptions for emergency response, transit buses, tow trucks, and other necessary vehicles. Finally, in order to deter those who may choose to violate the restrictions, the bill establishes a minimum fine of $1,000 for violators and directs the funds to go directly towards additional safety improvements to the corridor. AB 1361 is supported by local communities and has no opposition and has received no votes. Frankly, this is a long time coming. This is an unsafe stretch of highway for these large trucks, and I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no. Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 59, no 0. Measure passes. Members will now move to the third reading file. Assemblymember Carter will move to file item 14, amendments. File item 13, pass and retain. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 114 by with amendments by Assemblymember Carter.
You may open on the amendments.
Madam Speaker, members, I rise for the purpose of amendments to my Assembly Bill 114. These amendments clarify that the rights of victims are included in the Restorative Justice Protocol. I request to have the amendments adopted, out to print, and back on file.
With no further debate, without objection, we will adopt the amendments. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The amendments are adopted, out to print, and back to file. File item 15, pass and retain. File item 16, pass and retain. File item 17, pass and retain. File item 18, pass and retain. File item 19, pass and retain. File item 20. Mr. Price, are you ready? Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 888 by Assemblymember Price, an act relating to alcoholic beverages.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the goal of this bill is to create and maintain a safe and healthy learning environment for the children throughout California. Young citizens of this state have an undeniable and fundamental right to the advantages of a school environment which is conducive to educational goals and prerogatives, and which is totally free of alcohol abuse and other illicit activities on or near school property. To be frank, the consumption of alcohol near a K-12 school raises issues pertaining to safety and neighborhood character. AB 888 will give the cities an additional tool to crack down on the disturbance of the peace, public drunkenness, loitering, harassment of passerby, lewd conduct, and vandalism at times, which is related to illegal alcohol consumption. AB 888 is consistent with the current law in that ABC is specifically authorized to refuse the issuance, other than renewal or ownership transfer, of any retail license for the premises located within at least 600 feet of schools and public playgrounds or nonprofit facilities. This bill does not affect alcohol consumption on private residential property. A clarifying amendment will be added in the Senate, which will deal with private residences near homeschooling. There's no opposition, Madam Speaker. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no further debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 44, noes 16. Measure passes. File item 21, Mr. Blumenfield. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 474 by Assemblymember Blumenfield, an act relating contractual assessments.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise today in strong support of a bill, AB 474, about water conservation financing. Across the state, we're facing record low rainfalls, third consecutive year of drought, reservoirs at 50% of normal capacity, and mandatory water rationing and restrictions in some communities. There are all sorts of ways that we can go about dealing with our water crisis. There are carrots and there are sticks. There's regulations, there's incentives. We need to look at all of this. This today, what I bring before you today, is an incentive program. It's one that I think we can all get behind. And I want to take a moment and speak specifically to my Republican colleagues, because I know that some of you are thinking hard about this bill, and I want to remind you this bill is supported by the Chamber of Commerce. It's supported by all of the different water agencies that are involved, or many of the different water agencies that are involved. It's a chance for us to put a real incentive out there for water conservation, to do what we need to do in the kind of way that allows people to do it on a voluntary basis. This is not a tax. This is a voluntary contractual assessment to create water conservation. And I ask for your strong support, and I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 51, noes 10. Measure passes. File item 22, pass and retain. File item 23, pass and retain. File item 24, pass and retain. File item 25, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 851 by Assemblymember Brownlee, an act relating to education finance.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. AB 851 proposes to incorporate 5 revenue limit add-ons into 2 fixed adjustments to be included in each school district's total revenue limit. This bill will not have an impact on future equalization or any other issue that would increase pressure for additional state funding. We're working with the Department of Finance to clarify the intent of the bill, which is to simplify the process, to generate administrative savings, and not to create any additional costs. This is a step towards simplifying our current education finance system, and more importantly, simplifying our education code. I respectfully ask this body for their aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0. Measure passes. Assemblymember Evans.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. I need to present SB 61. This is...
I'm sorry, Assemblymember Evans. I thought you were going to do an introduction.
No.
Hold on that for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving to file item 26, amendments. Assemblymember Hill, you ready?
Assembly Bill 499 with amendments by Assemblymember Hill.
I rise for the purpose of amending AB 499. The amendment before this House is a clarifying amendment to help avoid a potential pitfall with missing the 20-day deadline of serving. Currently, if a defendant does not accept the services or is out of the country, current law allows the serving party to seek an extension from the court. The amendment before you simply makes sure that AB 499 does not inadvertently change that provision in law. I ask that the amendments be adopted and the bill be moved to second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. We're going to have a roll call on that vote. Oh, Mr. Smythe?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We request a no vote on the amendments.
Okay. Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Ayes 47, noes 20. Clerk will close the roll. Amendments are adopted. Out to print and back to file. File item 27, pass and retain. File item 28, pass and retain. File item 29, Mr. Swanson. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 980 by Assemblymember Swanson, an act relating to school finance.
You may open.
Madam Speaker and members, what AB 980 is not is a challenge to charter schools, but an effort to develop equity for all public schools in an environment where charter schools are becoming increasingly dependent on public support. It is also an effort to protect the state's investment in the schools in receivership. AB 980 seeks to address a fundamental inequity in the districts that are under state receivership. Please note that I have agreed to the amendments offered by the committee, which essentially clarifies the scope of the bill to cover districts that still have an outstanding loan. This was the original intent of the bill, and I thank the committee staff for pointing that out. As you know, districts that are in receiverships must make fixed annual payments on their loans for to the state. The payment is taken out of their funds from the state, and it must be paid before any budgeting decisions are made. Unfortunately, most of these districts face declining enrollment and will, with their budgets as a result of decreases in income, the loan payment and the obligation continues to go on. This means that they must use an increasing larger percentage of their budget to meet their debt obligation. This threatens the district's ability to provide a quality education for the students in the district. States funding charter schools due to their special status do not ever reach the district. As a result, despite the fact that they are part of the community and are educating district students, they do not help shoulder the burden to the state. This bill creates inequitable public funding between the students in public schools and the charter schools. Furthermore, it puts charter schools at odds with the rest of the community. In Oakland, for example, they are seen as not paying their fair share. Some charter schools have agreed to some partial agreements where others have not. This bill makes it a uniform commitment, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Aye 44, noes 27. Measure passes. File item 30, Mr. Fong. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1400 by Assemblymember Fong, an act relating to community college districts.
You may open.
Good morning, Madam Speaker and members. AB 1400 provides a helpful tool for community college districts to protect students and personnel from students who have been expelled for serious acts of violence. Unfortunately, violence has become a common form of expression. Within the last 3 months, there have been 2 separate stabbings on California community college campuses. Current law states that if a California community college student is expelled for violent acts, they can re-enroll without disclosing their expulsion on the next campus. This bill will ensure that there will be a process for re-enrollment after a student commits an act of violence on a community college campus. AB 1400 will allow California community colleges to take action and place conditions on admitting a student who was expelled for serious acts of violence. The intent of this bill is not to bar access, rather it is to provide protection and safety to the student body and personnel on California community colleges. Disclosure of information is already standard amongst the K-12 education system. AB 1400 passed both the Education and Appropriations Committees unanimously. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Aye 70, no 0. Measure passes. File item 31. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 898 by Assemblymember Liu, an act relating to notaries public.
You may open.
Madam Speaker and members, AB 898 will help reduce the potential for document fraud and real estate fraud in 3 key areas. First, it provides the Secretary of State with the authority to refuse to process documents that are clearly intended for fraudulent purposes. Second, it limits a person's ability to obtain power of attorney documents by use of subscribing witness. And third, it eliminates a mandate that all notaries public process antiquated documents that are frequently used for fraudulent purposes. As the economy worsens and home property values continue to drop, blatant and costly scams have risen to defraud hardworking Californians. AB 898 is sponsored by the Secretary of State, supported by the City of Riverside. There's no listed opposition. Respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 46, noes 26. Measure passes. Members, we've been joined by another former Assembly member, Fred Keeley. Mr. Keeley. File item 32, pass and retain. File item 33, pass and retain. File item 34, Mr. Fong, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 933 by Assemblymember Fong, an act relating to workers' compensation.
You may open.
Madam Speaker and members, AB 933 clarifies current law and protects California workers by providing that physicians performing workers' compensation services, particularly utilization review, must possess a valid California license. Physicians not licensed in the state frequently do not understand the unique California-specific regulations the Division of Workers' Compensation has required on governing utilization review. Unlike any other state, California licensed medical doctors must obtain 12 hours of special education in pain management, the leading cause of disability in any area of workers' compensation medicine where proper application of California's hybrid guidelines is essential. Most California insurers and self-insured employers already use California licensed physicians. There's no evidence that they are experiencing delays or increased costs. There's no need for any utilization review program to employ out-of-state physicians that could lead to the inadequate or improper review of requests for needed treatment. Finally, AB 933 will be good for the economy. It will ensure that virtually all workers' comp review will be done by physicians who live, work, spend money, and pay taxes in California. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no debate. Oops. Ms. Carter.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise to support AB 933. AB 933 established appropriate accountability for the medical utilization review decisions governing the care received by individuals hurt at work in California. So I urge the members to vote aye on this measure.
Thank you. Mr. Fong, you can close.
Respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 26. Measure passes. Members, we're now going to go to file item 151. Oh, Mr. Tirico.
I apologize, Madam Speaker. Before we proceed to that item, if we can return to motions and resolutions.
Motions and resolutions.
I request unanimous consent to suspend Joint Rule 28.1 and Joint Rule 29 to permit the Speaker to appoint 5 members instead of 3 members to the Conference Committee on SB 61 on the Senate budget by Ms. Duchesne.
Okay, members, this requires a roll call vote. Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Mr. Smythe is asking for an aye vote. All those who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 73, no 0. Measure passes. We will now go to file item 151. Ms. Evans, I'm sure. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 61 by the Committee on Budget, an act relating to the Budget Act of 2009.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With all that build-up, this is really a very simple and very short presentation. SB 61 is the budget vehicle that we are using to start the conference committee process, which will begin this afternoon at 1:30. The bill contains technical language only, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 68, no 0. Measure passes. Assemblymember Evans.
Madam Speaker, I request immediate transmittal to the Senate.
Without objection. File item 35, pass and retain. File item 36, pass and retain. File item 37, pass and retain. File item 38, pass and retain. File item 39, Assemblymember Conway. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 492 by Assemblymember Conway, an act relating to community colleges.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 492 is a very important measure, certainly important to nursing students, that would benefit clinical nursing faculty and students alike in order to meet the growing challenges to train enough nurses for our mounting healthcare demands. Registered nurses shouldn't be forced to choose between the need to serve patients and the call to serve students by barring their ability to balance both professions. This bill would grant community colleges the flexibility to hire more nursing faculty temporarily or part-time by easing the strict hiring ratios in the nursing program only. Unless our nursing education programs can produce additional graduates, the nursing shortage could jeopardize public health and the quality of care. AB 492 would help community college districts create hiring solutions appropriate for their respective schools. This bill will sunset on June 30th, 2014, and did receive bipartisan support in the Higher Ed Committee. Basically, members, this bill is not a mandate. It simply gives community colleges the opportunity to allow nursing students who are on wait lists to actually enter the program and achieve a waiting job, a job that is full-time and pays benefits to help the economy. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 53, no 6. Measure passes. File item number 4 on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1406 with amendments by Assemblymember Emerson.
You may open on the amendments.
Madam Speaker and members, amendments are at the desk. They're technical in nature. It simply removes Orange County and leaves San Bernardino County. And thank you. I ask for aye vote.
Seeing no debate, we will adopt the amendments by voice vote. All those favoring aye. All those no. The amendments are adopted. Out to print. Back on file. File item 41, Mr. Price, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 30 by Assemblymember Price and other, an act relating to elections.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker. This bill allows 16-year-olds to pre-register to vote when the Secretary of State certifies the statewide voter registration database operational according to the requirements of the Federal Help America Vote Act. At least 9 other states currently permit pre-registration by individuals who have not reached the voting age. Both Hawaii and Florida allow 16-year-olds to vote. Establishing pre-registration in the state of California will expand civic participation in the electoral process for the preservation of our democracy. This is a simple bill to help address the issue of low voter turnout in our state, and I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Fortani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in support. I want to thank Member Curran Price for bringing this bill forward. What this is in the spirit of is getting our young people used to participating in the civic process of voting, getting them to realize that registering the vote can start happening earlier will also get them more open to looking at what's going on in the political arena, both locally, statewide, and nationally. I think this is a great civic bill. It's a way of getting young people to focus on the important process, the democratic process. I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Berryhill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise in opposition to this bill because I believe it is just simply ridiculous. For starters, Members, the proponents of this bill talk about taking steps to capture the enthusiasm of our young voters and express their desire to make it easy for them to join the ranks of California voters. The process is already simple and convenient. So simple and convenient that if we actually go check some of our county voting records in this state, I'm sure you will find strong levels of participation by those who are not even here legally and by some folks that have passed away. It must be pretty easy to register and vote if they can do that at the levels they do. There are plenty of private groups that have specific voter registration programs and turnout operations aimed at young persons. For example, Rock the Vote has a birthday card program. They put out 30,000 cards every month with registration forms to help register our young Californians. In short, there is no need for this bill. What is really going on here is something else. This bill is nothing more than a continued attempt by this body to so overload our county and state election officials that they cannot simply focus on keeping our voter rolls free from fraud and our elections free from dirty tricks. Kids should be worrying about their studies. Any of you that have teenagers in this body know the pressures that are on our kids at that age. I have three. I have three that are in high school. They have enough pressures with their studies, trying to pass their tests, their peer pressures. They simply don't need to be harassed about voting and registering to vote. This is a bad bill. I want kids to be able to be kids. They grow up too fast anyway. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of this bill. I just spent last Sunday at the giant Girl Scout Gold Award ceremony and watched Girl Scouts get their bronze, silver, and gold awards. I am the proud father of a 17-year-old daughter, and talking to her social circle and watching her grow up and seeing people being engaged and excited about the political process but having no outlet to do it other than write us letters and stand on street corners, the idea that they could pre-register to vote. And let's be clear, this does not change the legal age of voting. It just allows kids who want to be engaged in the political process an early ability to do that. I think it makes sense to excite people about the public process and what we do here and in Washington. Let's give them the ability to pre-register. I wholeheartedly urge an aye vote.
Mr. Swanson.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I rise in support of this bill, and I regret the fact that there are some members that don't accept the franchise that people have sacrificed so much for as very essential to our democracy. It is important that as early as possible that the citizens and our young citizens, when they have an opportunity to participate, they should be encouraged to do that. That is the only way we will help develop the kind of passions that are necessary for them to stay involved with their government. The President has talked about volunteer service for our nation, public service for our nation. And it's important for us to understand that there is no more important public service to our nation than casting a vote. That is your franchise to protect our democracy. This is fundamental, and if we can encourage our youngsters at an early age, those that are taking government classes and in developing their interest in public service or other professions to be involved with their government, I can't think of a more worthy activity, and I commend the author for this bill, and I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Nilo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a suggestion. Why don't we, at the birth of every baby in California, pre-register them to vote, which will become official when they reach whatever the voting age happens to be when they reach that age, or when citizens are naturalized. they also have this similar authorization that then just becomes automatically official whenever they would otherwise be able to register. Because, Madam Chair and members, in the 2 years that I spent on the Elections and Redistricting Committee, it became obvious to me that what we are obsessed with in this chamber relative to the franchise of voting is to make sure we get as many people registered as possible. That's our goal. Get as many people registered to vote as possible. Well, I don't quibble with that necessarily, but it is indeed because I value and cherish the franchise to vote that just simply is not enough, and if that is the only goal, it misserves our democracy. What we must become obsessed with is that we have a roll of voters who are engaged and informed. If we merely make the registration process so easy and so convenient that we don't even give the message that we expect engagement and informing oneself as to the issues, I'm afraid that that would be a very serious threat to the real quality of our representative democracy. Let us redirect this misdirection of our strategy of voting and re-emphasize civics education in high schools, which has been de-emphasized terribly in the last couple of decades. And to make sure that we foster and encourage not just registered voters, but engaged and informed voters. Our strategy is flawed, as is evidenced by this bill. The true dedication to the sanctity of the franchise would be insisting on an informed and engaged voter public.
Ms. Lowenthal? Ms. Lowenthal?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in very strong support of my soon-to-be former seatmate's bill. You know, the other day we had an election in which a little over 20% actually voted for something that was very important to all of us, one way or another. Only 1/5 of the registered voters. And it was pointed out to me by Mr. Amiano that there were more people who voted for American Idol than went to the polls the other day on Election Day. I think it's critical that we engage young people in civics, in leadership opportunities, and an opportunity to control their destiny by allowing them to pre-register to vote. And I strongly urge an aye vote.
Mr. Garrick?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to this measure because I believe the increases in potential fraud are significant and shouldn't be overlooked or cast aside lightly. This bill states that 16-year-olds can pre-register to vote and that the registration will become effective upon his or her 18th birthday if the information in the card is current at the time. But the bill does not provide for any mechanism to determine whether the information, such as the young person's address, is still current at their 18th birthday. Thus, every minor who registers will automatically stay on the voter rolls even if they move after registration. Typically, a lot of young people register on their 18th or shortly after and then go off to college. That situation is not addressed here. Leaving the voter rolls with more people eligible to vote in that particular precinct than really will be present. Furthermore, if a 16-year-old registers to vote by mail, the voter elects to vote absentee, that ballot would be sent to their home, and we don't have the safeguards that we'd like to see as it relates to that. Both of these situations will increase the likelihood of increased voter fraud. My seatmate here just spoke to the importance of having an informed and engaged voter populace. I also think we can't never overlook the security of that voting populace. I urge a no vote.
Ms. Yamada.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of this bill because for those of us that can still remember the quest for voter rights in this country, for all those who fought and died and were bloodied in the process of securing various voting rights in our country, this bill simply allows pre-registration, a reservation to exercise this franchise. I think all of the presentations made by our Republican colleagues, you know, there's some merit and some interest perhaps in continuing this discussion. None of us on this floor supports voter fraud. But, you know, I look up in this gallery today and I see some young people. And they're here today because they are interested in this process. And for some of the very reasons that my colleague Mr. Berryhill raised about the stresses and pressures on our young people, you know, to do their studies, engage in all of their extracurricular activities and so on, are precisely why this bill is so important. It's because in the press of daily business for children and families today, we never want to lose this opportunity to raise the expectation that it is a fundamental right to exercise our democratic process in this country. And by supporting this bill today, we are going to engage at an earlier age these very citizens that are going to be taking on leadership positions when all of us are long gone from this chamber. So with that, colleagues, I respectfully ask your support for this very simple bill. Other states have already engaged in this process, and I'm sure as this bill moves forward, if there are other concerns that are raised, I don't want to speak for the author, but I believe that we would be willing to continue to entertain further discussion. Let's trust our young people to exercise their responsibilities and give them the right to reserve this right to vote. Thank you.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes, Madam Speaker and member, I have a question to the author. No. Question to the author.
Objection?
Yeah, Mr. Price, would it appears that this would be the case, but I just wanted to clarify it. Once a 16 or 17-year-old is pre-registered, do they then become part of the registration rolls available for campaign mail?
No, this does not happen until they're actually eligible to vote.
Okay, so they'll be registered and then only for purposes of being moved to the voter registration rolls, but not public information for
That's
them
correct.
to be deluged with mail?
Information is confidential. No one will have access to it. The state cannot sell it or make it available.
Thank you.
Mr. Block.
Madam Speaker, I rise as a former educator to speak to the points made by the gentleman who sits behind me. I agree with him completely that we need to do a better job of civics education for our students. And to me, there is no better time to teach, no better teachable moment than when these young people would have an opportunity to pre-register. It is precisely for that reason, the importance of civics education, an opportunity to engage our high school students when they are about to pre-register, that I wholeheartedly support this bill and urge an aye vote.
Mr. Anderson?
Question of the author.
Without objection?
There was a good point that was brought up, and I don't know what the answer to this is. So we register them at 16. Some at 17 or 18 go off to college, go off to the service, go off to other areas. Is there any provision in your bill that would somehow reach out to them? Because if they're registered and they forgot that they registered, because we all have busy lives, and God only knows my 16-year-old, I have to remind all the time to pick up her clothes and take care of her chores. Is there any provision to track them down so that they don't miss that opportunity to vote? So they've signed up, their location now has moved, but they've registered at a different location. and because they're children still, what in your bill would notify them to make sure that they know that their ballot showed up someplace other than where they are?
No, that's a good question, Mr. Anderson. There's no provision for that in this bill. I think we certainly would rely on the parent, guardian, or whoever's receiving the mail to notify the individual, but there's no provision that there's some further ongoing notification as a part of this legislation.
Is there any notification in it when they sign up for a parent to sign with them, so that the parent knows that they've registered? See, part of the problem is, in my mind, the parent has now moved the whole family. They didn't even know if their kids signed up for that. I mean, I'm always amazed at how many things that show up through the mail that I had no idea that we purchased, that my kids bought online.
Right. They are not eligible to vote until they reach the age of 18, and so they would...
But what are the protections to make sure that that ballot gets to them? If the parent doesn't know that they've registered and it goes to the old location, there's no protection in this bill for that I can tell.
No, there's not, nor is there any protection for citizens who have registered and who move away and who don't get that ballot either. It's not a part of the enforcement process, but perhaps it's something worth consideration.
But right now with the system, if I sign up, I know I can vote immediately because I'm 18, so I'm expecting it. I'm not signing up for something 2 years down the line that I may or may not remember. That's the biggest concern I have for your bill. And because there aren't those protections, I ask for a no vote.
Mr. Blakesley.
A question of the author.
Without objection, so long as it's a question.
Is this your first bill as a senator?
As senator-elect.
Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 30. In the good old days, members, we used to be able to take our children during presidential elections, and they can vote alongside for their favorite president with their parents. Of course, their vote did not count, but it mattered to them, and it was a way for parents and a way for the community to teach the kids about the importance of getting out and voting and casting your voice for who your representatives are going to be. In my own city, we have Youth in Government Day, and it is our opportunity, working with our city clerk, to bring high school students to City Hall. We hold a city council meeting. When I was mayor, I had a student mayor sitting next to me running the meeting. Council members would have student council members sitting next to them. The chief of police would have a student chief of police sitting next to him and reporting on police-related issues to the city council body and to the student council body. That is a wonderful way to teach kids about government, not just about politics. I want to thank the Senator-elect for bringing this bill forward, because this gives our leaders an opportunity to continue that teaching our kids about the importance of being engaged in government and not just casting a vote. Thank you.
Mr. Price, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the comments my colleagues have made. I think one thing we can agree on, the rate of participation in our process and our democratic process is low. We should be doing all we can to encourage participation. And doing so at an early age, I think, demonstrates that there's an opportunity for young people to get involved and to be actively engaged. This bill provides a tool to make that happen. There is, I think, no better investment we can make in our communities than encouraging young people to be involved in the process early, and I urge your aye vote.
Clerk, you may open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 46, noes 27. Measure passes. Assemblymember Price will move to file item 42. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 57 by Assemblymember Price, an act relating to health facilities.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm here to present AB 57, a bill that would require the Department of Public Health to establish a procedure for the collection and review of written staffing plans from the University of California hospitals. Currently, the Department of Public Health is not required to review the methods or procedures used by hospitals for determining non-nurse professional and technical staff. Ensuring that we have adequate staffing plans in place at our public hospitals is critical to ensuring quality patient care. AB 57 would initiate a pilot program to evaluate safe hospital staffing levels at the 5 UC hospitals for all employees that provide direct patient care. However, these provisions would exclude registered nurses. The link between safe staffing levels and quality patient care is well established. The Department of Public Health has determined what safe staffing levels are required for nurses, but not for other professionals and technical staff, even though they provide direct patient care. While the cost of this measure is minimal, the cost of failing to take action to ensure safe staffing levels in our hospitals presents far greater consequences. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 26. Measure passes. File item 43, pass and retain. File item 44, pass and retain. File item 45, Mr. Liu on the amendments. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 828 with amendments by Assemblymember Liu.
You may open on the amendments.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, the amendments to AB 828 require the CEC, when developing voluntary standards, to seek that the cost to the public is reasonable and they leverage any available incentive mechanisms. There are also a few other technical amendments. We respectfully request your aye vote on the amendments and ask the bill go out to print and be placed back to file.
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, we request a roll call vote, and I ask for a no vote on the amendments.
Clerk will open the roll. Mr. Smythe asks for a no vote. Mr. Liu asks for an aye vote. All those vote who desire to 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 vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 24. Amendments are adopted, out to print and back on file. File item 46, pass and retain. File item 47, pass temporarily. File item 48, pass retain. File item 49, pass and retain. File item 50, pass and retain. File item 51, Mr. Amiano. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 277 by Assemblymember Amiano, an act relating to transportation.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and colleagues. This is a good bill that deletes the option of specifying the membership of the San Francisco Transportation and County Authority in retail transactions. Though through this measure, the membership of the San Francisco County Transportation Authority would be specified in the County Transportation Expenditure Plan, as it has been since the authority was established in 1989. This measure is sponsored by the San Francisco County Transportation Authority and 23 counties of the Self-Help Counties Coalition. I respectfully urge an aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 43, noes 24. Measure passes. File item 52, pass and retain. File item 53, pass and retain. File item 54, Mr. Davis. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 632 by Assemblymember Davis, an act relating to privacy.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 632 deals with consumer protections for persons using internet social networks. This bill creates an opportunity for those who use social networks, and we know that when using social networks, they are used to develop a community often because people want to share what their thoughts are, what their interests are, and most of all, what their pictures are in terms of sharing those with friends who share a common interest. The problem has been in the practice of the social networking environment that while there has in fact been a warning, that warning has not been specific enough to inform the consumer that even though they think they have protected their pictures, that an individual can copy that picture by simply clicking on the right side of their mouse and can copy that picture. Thus, trouble has certainly been brewing in terms of often pedophiles having access to these pictures and those who are involved in the collection of child erotica and the like. We know that this is important to give a notice to consumers so that they will be aware specifically, and that is what this bill requires of the internet companies. Simply that they use a notification to the consumer that any person can see a picture and they can copy it. This bill is supported by the PTA, Parent Teachers Association. We have removed fierce opposition from this bill initially presented in the Judiciary Committee. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is good government that will be in the best interest of not only our children, but of all of the consumers of internet social service, social network privacy, and therefore I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Mr. Davis moves the call. Members, I inadvertently skipped over file item 53. Mr. Amiano, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 690 by Assemblymember Amiano, an act relating to public post-secondary education.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. This measure would require that the CSU Board of Trustees and request that the UC Board of Regents allow publicly elected ex officio members of their respective governing boards to delegate an alternate representative from the same elected body to attend meetings in their absence. For example, the Lieutenant Governor, as President of the State Senate, would be allowed to appoint a member of the Senate to serve as his designee if he is unable to attend a board meeting. The bill was amended in committee to clarify that designees would not be granted the authority to vote, nor would they count towards the establishment of a quorum. Designees would only serve as the eyes and ears of the ex officio members. Members, in light of the fiscal scandals that have plagued these public institutions in recent years and the drastic increases in student fees at a time when our state is obviously struggling against a crippling budget deficit, it is imperative that statutorily required oversight of these boards be maintained. I respectfully urge your aye vote. Fiscal.
You finished, Mr. Amiano?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Quite finished.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 25. Measure passes. File item 55, pass and retain. 56, pass and retain. 57, pass and retain. 58, Mr. Nilo. Mr. Nilo. File item 58. Clerk. It's AB 1140. Okay. File item 58, pass and retain. File item 59, Mr. Liu. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1185 by Assemblymember Liu, an act relating to birth certificates.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. A recent Court of Appeals ruling found that current California law is unconstitutional as it relates to birth certificates. This bill corrects it. AB 1185 closes a loophole in current law. And under California law right now, individuals that undergo sexual reassignment surgery to petition the court in which they reside to obtain a new birth certificate reflecting the change in gender. This bill simply allows for individuals to have the option to petition the court in which they were born to obtain a new birth certificate. It's sponsored by Equality California. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no discussion, clerk open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Close roll, tally votes. Ayes 41, noes 26. Measure passes. Move to file item 59, AB 1180. I'm sorry, negative. Move to file item 60, AB 1110. 59, pass and retain. 60, file item 60, AB 1110. Fuentes, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1110 by Assemblymember Fuentes, an act relating to energy.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 1110 allows certain fuel cell technologies that can be used for distributed generation to receive the same benefits that cogeneration facilities receive if the fuel cells provide the same or better environmental benefits. Current law provides that cogeneration facilities receive specific economic benefits due to the fact that cogeneration facilities can increase the efficient use of natural gas, help reduce air pollution, and help reduce carbon dioxide emissions. Fuel cells provide the same benefits, but because some fuel cells recycle the waste heat differently, they do not qualify as cogeneration and thus do not get the same economic incentives. These rules put the newer, highly efficient fuel cells at a competitive disadvantage. This bill simply corrects this competitive problem and makes sure those technologies that create the same or better environmental benefits are treated the same in the marketplace. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no, in here no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk close roll, tally the votes. Ayes 52, noes 8. Measure passes. We'll move to file item 61, AB 769. Torres, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 769 by Assemblymember Torres, an act relating to state preschool.
Ms. Torres, are you ready?
Thank you, Speaker. Assembly Bill 769 would ensure that young children of very high-risk youth, such as those on probation or in the foster system, will receive priority eligibility for state preschool funding. This bill adds that children of parents who are or have been within the previous 6 months under the jurisdiction of the delinquency or dependency court to be the list at the priority list enrollment in state preschool programs. Studies consistently show that early childhood education has a positive impact on pupils' future educational success. This bill will help a hidden population of at-risk children that is currently not being served by the state preschool program. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, noes 0. Measure passes. Members will recognize, Ms. Evans has some guests here in the chambers. Recognize Redwood Middle School from Napa, right here in the balcony. Please, let's welcome the members. Thank you for joining us in the Capitol. Members will now move to file item 64, AB 789. De Leon, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 789 with amendments by Assemblymember De Leon.
Mr. De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. These amendments for AB 789 are technical in nature and agreed to in the Assembly Public Safety Committee. I respectfully ask for aye vote.
Members, we will have a voice vote on the item. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Bills to print, back on file. We'll move to file item pass and retain. File item 66. We'll move to file item 72, AB 1080. Skinner, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1080 by Assemblymember Skinner, an act relating to school facilities.
Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, 1080 is a bill that will allow for the construction of the Emeryville Center for Community Life adjacent to 2 schools. The Center for Community Life is a partnership between the City of Emeryville, the Emeryville Unified School District, and the Emeryville Chamber of Commerce. It will be a joint-use facility that provides educational and community-oriented services to students and community members. To address safety concerns during school hours, and generally there is a physical barrier between the school facilities and the community center. Additionally, the school will have separate entrances that are supervised and controlled. The center has been in the planning process for 6 years, and this legislation is necessary to address Ed Code issues around shared use facilities. 1080 is a simple bill. It simply authorizes the Emeryville Unified School District to enter into a joint use, joint ownership agreement with the City of Emeryville to construct these facilities. School construction funding will only be used for the construction of the new school, and school construction funding will not be used to fund the community center. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Nastandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. I did oppose the bill and had concerns in committee about mixing populations with the school and other parts of the community, but as I talked to Assemblywoman Skinner afterwards and had some assurances there will be a segregation for the populations, actual barriers. I do think if the city wants to do it, if the school district wants to do it, if the Chamber of Commerce wants to do it, try something new. I think that's a good idea to have a pilot program, see if it works, and maybe we'll use it in other communities. So I support the bill.
Ms. Harkey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. I, too, rise in support of this bill. This is a good bill. It's a local control issue. Emeryville is a very small town, 12,000 people. This is an excellent use of resources, limited resources and land. It's well thought out. The city council is elected. The school board is elected. If the people didn't like it, they certainly would have thrown them out. I really think that this is a local control issue and we ought to support it. Thank you.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, noes 0. Measure passes. Move to file item 76, AB 746. Mr. Cotto, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 746 by Assemblymember Cotto, an act relating to conflict of interest.
Mr. Cotto.
Yes, Madam Speaker, members, this bill provides that an independent contractor shall not be deemed to be interested in a contract executed on or after September 1, 2008 as a result of an independent contractor's preparation at the request of a governmental entity of a document that serves a purpose independent of a contract, a request for proposal, a request for qualifications, a request for bids, or any other bid-related documents. Language was drafted in conjunction with Legislative Council and the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, and I ask for your aye vote.
Okay. Because seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, noes 4. Measure passes. File item 74, AB 1328, pass and retain. We'll move to file item 78, AB 1232. Huffman, clerk will read. Right after you're next.
Assembly Bill 1232 by Assemblymember Huffman, an act relating to local government.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a district bill that addresses the long-neglected problem of chronic sewer spills into San Francisco Bay in southern Marin. There's a long history of this problem, and at the heart of it is aging and leaky infrastructures. So basically the sewage collection system has been so neglected that every time we have a major rain, the sewage collection system turns into a stormwater system that overwhelms sewage treatment facilities and results in sewage spills into San Francisco Bay just about every year. In the last 5 years, there have been 2 grand jury investigations, and both times they've recommended that the 11 small sewer districts that line Richardson Bay and southern Marin should be consolidated. A LAFCO municipal service review came to similar conclusions and found many benefits, including cost savings for ratepayers, and yet major sewage spills into the bay have continued. The local districts have ignored the recommendations of LAFCO and the grand jury, and even last year, when a $1.6 million fine for water quality violations was levied, the fine has simply been built into the cost of doing business, and the agencies continue business as usual. To address this problem, this bill would authorize the Marin LAFCO to initiate and approve a reorganization or consolidation of small wastewater agencies and waive the LAFCO protest hearing under very narrow circumstances that would apply only in southern Marin County. There were 3 things would need to happen. First, LAFCO would need to have conducted a municipal service review in the last 10 years that recommended reorganization or consolidation for benefits to the ratepayers, including financial benefits, accountability, and better management of sewage. Second, agencies would need to have essentially ignored those recommendations. And third, the agencies would need to have had 3 or more illegal discharges in 5 years exceeding 5,000 gallons of partially or untreated wastewater. My hope is that the very narrow, limited authority we're creating in this bill will never need to be used. But if we continue to see spills and a stubborn refusal of some small districts to work together to address the problem, unfortunately, we will need this type of a remedy. So I request your aye vote.
Mr. Jeffries.
Members, as an individual who had served on LAFCO as well, and comes from a county that has numerous special districts that also need to consolidate, I don't doubt the sincerity or probably even the need to consolidate special districts in order to improve efficiencies and save ratepayers money. The issue here today, though, is do you really want to start down this slippery slope of eliminating the ability of the public's right to protest? Do we in the legislature want to stand up today and say that we feel that at the local level your right to protest should be eliminated? Is that what this body stands for today? Silencing the ability of landowners or registered voters to protest a government process through a legitimate and long-standing process. I don't think this body needs to move into that arena. I don't think that's the slope that we need to be on. There is a process. It's been established. It's been long held. And if it's not working in that county, it's not working because the local leaders are not moving the process. It is not our job, however, to say that the people who should be punished for that are the voters or the landowners. I would respectfully request a no vote.
Mrs. Swiller.
I agree with the Honorable Mr. Huffman's consolidation portion. There are many agencies that could benefit from that, but I am very, very concerned that a forced consolidation would not allow for the public protest, and without that dialogue, how can you figure out exactly how bad that forced choice is going to be, and how can it ever succeed? People be bad forever and probably try to blow up the water agencies in the end. So I just am hoping that there could be a better way to amend this bill, and I have to oppose it at this time.
Mr. Huffman, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I certainly appreciate the comments of the two members who have spoken, and I don't take this issue lightly. I know that it's unusual what this bill is seeking to do, but I do want to assure members that this is not a slippery slope that is going to lead to forced consolidations all over the state. In fact, my strong sense is it won't even lead to forced consolidations in the southern part of Marin County, where it is targeted. But what it does do is address a problem unique to southern Marin, where agencies for many years have simply not made the tough choices to invest in their infrastructure. And the result is they've inflicted sewage spills on the broader community. And because of the current consolidation hearing process, they have a kill switch over consolidation. There is no way to ever, under any circumstances, force these agencies to work together and to make the tough choices that need to be made to protect the Bay and to protect the ratepayers and the citizens around them. So I have narrowly tailored this bill. Again, geographically, only applies. The size of the districts is very specific in the bill, and the circumstances are extremely limited under which this would ever apply. There would have to be the LAFCO finding and recommendation. There would have to be ignoring of those recommendations by the local districts in southern Marin County. And then finally, there would have to be a terrible record of unlawful sewage spills that weren't being addressed by those districts. I think we should all be able to agree that there does come a point in the process where something like this needs to actually be an option on the table, and I request your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 25. Measure passes. Members, we have Mr. Krikorian, who would like to introduce some special guests he has here in the chamber. Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Returning to motions and resolutions. In the gallery, we have joining us today students and faculty from the Kruzian Zakarian Vaspuragian Armenian School from San Francisco. And on behalf of Assembly Members Ma and Assembly Member Amiano, I'd like to welcome them to the Capitol and welcome them to our chambers.
Welcome. And welcome. Thank you, Mr. Krikorian. Members will now move to file item 79, AB 1464. Mr. Smythe, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1464 by Assemblymember Smythe and others, an act relating to transportation.
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I think it's appropriate that today was Bike to Work Day, and this bill kind of coincides, with that effort. What this bill will do is allow Caltrans to work with local governments, cities, counties, to establish a legacy of trail systems that can be used for bicyclists. It would be allowed, like if you take, for example, the Tour de California that we just recently had here in the state. Local governments up and down that route could designate that a route of historic significance or a training route, so consumers and residents and tourists can bike that same route. Additionally, similar to Route 66 for cars having historic significance, local governments could establish that as well for bicyclists. And as we know, biking is a continually increasing economic engine here in the state. It actually accounts for about $1 billion in revenue to the state of California, and that is excluding the revenue that's generated from the Tour de California and others. 4 major bicycle manufacturers call California home, and having this trail would allow local governments to work with certain groups to develop these trails and tours, and it's just another way to celebrate the diversity that we have here in California, and I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Those voters desire to vote. Roll tally the votes. Ayes 64, no 0. Measure passes. We'll move to file item 80, AB 1514. Ms. Hayashi, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1514 by Assemblymember Hayashi, an act relating to the Political Reform Act of 1974.
Ms. Hayashi.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 1514 calls for the increased disclosure of campaign contributions by recipient political committees and state mailer organizations. The bill will improve transparency and help make political and governmental organizations more accountable to the public. The bill is sponsored by Secretary of State Deborah Bowen and has support of the League of Women Voters. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Adams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in strong support of this measure. I believe this bill does, in fact, achieve its intended goal, which is to create a greater degree of transparency. I believe that all those participating in the political process need to have full disclosure with the voters who we are trying so desperately to communicate with. I urge an aye vote.
Ms. Hayashi, you may close.
I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 68, noes 0. Measure passes. Move to file item 81, AB 1531. Mr. Portantino, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1531 by Assemblymember Portantino, an act relating to public contracts.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 1531 prohibits the use of non-compete clauses in contracts for state services. The state of California enters into a large number of expensive contracts to provide staffing in critical areas of state institutions and programs. We finance these contracts entirely from general funds at significantly higher costs than when state employees perform the same services. A notable example is occurring in our prison system. While such contracts may be necessary on occasion, the state should not allow contractors to use non-compete clauses in contracts with their employees, especially non-compete clauses that prohibit the contractor's employee from seeking or accepting state employment. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, no 0. Measure passes. We'll move to pass retain on file item 82. We'll move to file item 87, AB 175. Ms. Galgiani, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 175 by Assemblymember Galgiani and others, an act relating to telemedicine.
Ms. Galgiani.
Telemedicine is a growing technology that is used to help provide access for health care in rural areas, and it's also a cost savings measure to the state. Currently, optometrists are able to provide telemedicine services in their field. However, Medi-Cal does not allow for reimbursement of such. This bill will allow for Medi-Cal reimbursement for optometry services. It will provide a tremendous saving to the state. For every digital retinal screening test, it will save the state $2,500, and if 500 were done alone, that would be a total savings to the state of $1.3 million. This has bipartisan support. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0. Measure passes. We move to file item 88, AB 241. Mr. Nava, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 241 by Assemblymember Nava, an act relating to animals.
Mr. Nava.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is Assembly Bill 241. Recent national media attention has highlighted the plight of puppies in commercial breeding facilities across the country. Earlier this month, an episode of The Dog Whisperer on National Geographic featured facilities in Los Angeles. Known as puppy mills, these factories mass-produce puppies for sale. Puppy mill kennels usually consist of small wood and wire mesh cages where female dogs are bred continuously with no rest between heat cycles. The mothers and their litters often suffer from malnutrition, exposure, lack of adequate veterinary care. Continuous breeding takes its toll on the females. They are killed at about age 6 or 7 when their bodies give out and they are no longer profitable. Puppies are taken from their mothers at the age of 4 to 8 weeks of age and sold to brokers for transport and resale to pet shops. Between unsanitary conditions at puppy mills and poor treatment and transport, only half of the dogs bred at mills survive to make it to market. Of those that eventually do make it to the stores, thousands of puppies each year are often sold to impulse buyers and ultimately end up in shelters. Nearly 1 million dogs and cats land in California animal shelters every year, of whom approximately half are ultimately euthanized. A criminal bust of a single puppy mill can yield massive expenses to state and local jurisdictions due to the cost of shelter, food, and veterinary care. With this in mind, AB 241 limits the number of intact dogs or cats a seller can maintain to 50. AB 241 has bipartisan support, and I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Garrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to rise in opposition to this bill. The author, I'm sure, is well intended. None of us, having seen any of the pictures or read any of the stories regarding puppy mills and the abuses that take place of dogs in those puppy mills, would want to support those. But I find this bill too limiting. I myself am a dog lover and have had the pleasure and the privilege of owning several dogs at the same time, along with having puppies with those dogs, raising puppies. And if you were to be a true breeder and have 5 or 6 females, a legitimate breeder, and each of those females were to give birth to a litter of 9 to 10 puppies, you're suddenly over the numeric limit of 50. This bill would create a statewide limit of 50, and I do not believe that we should be delving into something that is possible and already exists on the local level for regulations. We have some members here represent 5, 6, 11, 12 counties. In one case, one of my seatmates right to my right here represents over 25% of the land mass in California and has 4 different counties. Each of those counties have their own regulations as it relates to what breeders can do and the number of dogs. I think it's best left to the locals. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of this measure. We need to be clear that we're delineating between legitimate breeders and these operators of puppy mills, which are exceptionally cruel to the animals and the impacts that it has on local government that my colleague from Santa Barbara did allude to. What we're seeing now with part of the housing crisis, a byproduct of that, is many people not only are walking away from their homes, but they're walking away from their pets as well, and they're being sent and distributed into shelters, and the cost to local governments is exceptional. So because of that, and as well, it's just simply the right thing to do. I ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Adams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise in strong support of this measure. As a family that has devoted ourselves to the care of our dogs and singularly succeeded in creating an almost incredibly rich environment for them, I can't tell you how important dogs and animals are as a part of mine and my wife's life. We have had occasion to come into to the opportunity to work with breeders all over the United States, and I can tell you unequivocally that the reality is, as responsible breeders have nothing to fear from this bill. Those who actually seek to do a good thing, who are attentive to the needs of the dog and to make sure the dogs are provided for in the most healthy manner, will have no problems living within the confines of what is proposed in this legislation. Members, this bill seeks to take to task those people who disregard the health of the dog, disregard the health of the public, and generally speaking are profit motivated simply and solely. Members, I believe this is a very genuine, honest, straightforward bill, and I would strongly recommend your aye vote.
Mr. Nava, you may close.
I would ask the members to please accept this expression of bipartisan support for the bill and vote aye.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters are to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 51, noes 0. Measure passes. We'll move to file item 89, AB 287 bill. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 287 with amendments by Assembly Member Bell.
On the amendments. Mr. Bell.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. The amendments add an organized labor organization representing regional service coordination staff to the entities that the Employment First Committee of the State Council on Developmental Disabilities must meet and consult with in carrying out responsibilities under this bill, and adds co-authors. I respectfully ask for your adoption of these amendments and that the bill be sent out to print and placed back on the file.
Mr. Smythe.
Speaker, members request a roll call on the amendments and ask for a no vote.
Without objection, Mr. Bell.
I ask for an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll on the amendments. Clerk will close the roll. Ayes 42, noes 22. Print back on file. Move to file item 91, AB 362, Miller. Mr. Miller, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 362 by Assembly Member Miller, an act relating to theft.
Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers. Members, currently it's illegal to vandalize and or infringe upon the free speech of another regardless of motivation or intention. However, there continue to be cases where political signs are confiscated, moved, turned over, covered with other propaganda, and used for opposing campaign purposes. There are even situations where major theft occurs, as in pallets of signs, and or misuse has occurred. But these cases are difficult to prosecute because existing code is vague in determining whether or not certain misuses are a crime. I'm sure many of us here have experienced misuse of our own campaign signs and or campaigns we have worked on, such as Proposition 8. My bill is simply designed to target theft or vandalism of political signs by clarifying that it's a crime for a person to knowingly take, possess, damage, reuse, or move any political sign without the authorization of the owner. My bill also clarifies an exemption. This exemption would include local government officials from removing illegal signs, law enforcement, authorized campaign agents, private property owners who have not given consent to post that sign. The sponsor of the bill believes that increasing public awareness that such actions are a crime, this bill will be a much-needed tool that law enforcement can use, and it's received broad bipartisan support. I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Calderon. Mr. Calderon.
It's a Capelot. What did it say?
I guess I caught you off guard.
I have to rise in opposition to this bill. It's like deja vu. I can't tell you how many campaigns, where you got to deal with this issue. They're taking down our signs, they're defacing our signs. I understand the frustration, but what I'm worried about in terms of this bill is that potentially every campaign worker is an agent of the candidate. And the accusation can be made that the candidate supports this and ultimately could be an issue in the campaign. And there's no, and you can file a complaint with the district attorney's office. The district attorney's office would have to investigate it. Part of the complaint is that it's the candidate and not the workers on the campaign. And it really starts to confuse the issues. And I don't see anything in here that prevents that from happening. And I think that is worth more trouble and worth more mischief than the mischief involved in tearing down these signs. And so I ask for a no vote.
Mr. Miller, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill simply clarifies the law and specifically identifies that the person that does the damage or misuse or theft or vandalism to the sign would be the one that would be prosecuted. It wouldn't be any ancillary member of a campaign team. It would be the one that actually does the damage or vandalism. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Very well. Seeing and hearing no further debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 47, noes 3, measure passes. File item 92, AB 438. Mr. Bell, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 438 by Assemblymember Bell and others, an act relating to developmental services.
Mr. Bell.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to present AB 438. AB 438 takes steps to provide appropriate services and supports for nonviolent individuals with cognitive developmental disabilities who became involved with the criminal justice system. It expands the eligibility for diversion and gives the courts the discretion to order diversion for people with cognitive developmental disabilities charged with nonviolent felonies, but as under the current law, only if the district attorney, probation department, and regional center agree that diversion is appropriate. This will give some nonviolent people with cognitive disabilities access to more appropriate services and supports to better enable them to become productive, law-abiding members of our community. It will also reduce recidivism and help prison overcrowding by serving more individuals in the community. The bill requires the Department of Developmental Services to convene a task force to identify strategies and best practices in addressing the needs of adults and juveniles with developmental disabilities in the criminal and juvenile justice systems. I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 30. Measure passes. Move to file item 94, AB 483. Ms. Buchanan, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 483 by Assemblymember Buchanan and others, an act relating to workers' compensation.
Ms. Buchanan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, to obtain information from the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau, one must submit a request in writing or by email, pay an $8 fee, and then wait for a written response. The response can take up to 30 days. AB 483 is simple. It directs the Workers' Compensation Insurance Rating Bureau to create and maintain an online searchable database for employer workers' compensation data. Further, it requires the Assurance Commissioner to adopt regulations for the database by January 1st, 2011, and for the website to be operational 180 days following the effective date of those regulations. In the information age, it makes sense to streamline government wherever we can and to provide this information online so that workers, employers, and the public have easy access. 33 other states do so already, and cost savings have been reported. This bill is similar to AB 507, which passed the Assembly with 77 aye votes and no opposition last year. It's received unanimous support in committee this year, and I urge your aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 73, no 0. Measure passes. We'll move to file without objection. We'll go back to file item 79, AB 1422. Ms. Bass on amendments, presented by Mrs. Torres. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1422 with amendments by Assemblymember Torres.
Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Speaker. On behalf of Madam Speaker, I request that these technical amendments to Assembly Bill 1422 be adopted and for the bill to go out to print and back on file.
Any questions or debate on the amendments? We'll move to a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Out to print, back on file. Members will move without objection. Item 70, AB 40. Mrs. Huber, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 640 with amendments by Assemblymember Hagman.
Ms. Hagman. Ms. Huber.
Mr. Hagman.
I believe the amendments are taken up by Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Hagman's Hubert's bill, Hagman's amendments.
We got the two H's on here. Mr. Chair, members, thank you for letting me do this. I know these type of amendments are characterized as hostile amendments, but in this case they are not. They are helpful amendments to this bill. They will make a good bill much better. AB 640 would provide that a person who is convicted of selling methamphetamine who is granted probation will be required as a condition of probation to serve a minimum of 120 days in jail. That's a great bill. I'm glad to support that. But these amendments that I'm offering today actually makes this bill better. It classifies methamphetamines for the sale, transportation, and possession of sale to be the same as cocaine and heroin, with a 2, 3, or 4 years in state prison for possession, for sale, and 3, 4, or 5 years in state prison for transportation and sale of methamphetamine. They would not change the current law, this proposed law, for simple possession of methamphetamine, and did not remove the mandatory minimum jail time as the author has included in this bill. Nearly 80% of all the methamphetamine manufactured in the United States is made right here in California, much of this in Central Valley and San Bernardino County. Around half of all defendants receiving Prop 36 treatment listed in methamphetamine as their primary drug abuse. We can and should do better to stop the spread of this drug. I have great respect for my neighbor here and her bill. I'm asking that these amendments be considered. If they're not considered, I still plan to support her bill as stated. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Tirico.
Mr. Speaker, I move to lay the amendments on the table.
Is there a second? It's been seconded by Mr. Krikorian. It's not debatable, and we need a majority of those present to vote. Mr. Tirico is asking for an aye vote, and Mr. Smythe is asking for a no vote on the amendments. Clerk will close the roll. Ayes 43, noes 29. Amendments are laid on the table. Back on the bill, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 640 by Assemblymember Huber, an act relating to sentencing.
Ms. Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The real Ms. Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 640, as Mr. Hagman clearly did address does try to get a handle on the methamphetamine abuses that are happening in our communities. My districts alone are fighting this fight harder than any other drug right now. Under current law, we mandate that any dealer of cocaine, heroin, PCP spend as a condition of their probation at least 180 days in the county jail so that the dealers are off of the streets. What my bill does is allow that same almost same punishment to apply to dealers of methamphetamines. We were not able to get 180 days out of the policy committee. We were able to get 120 days. It is a step in the right direction to getting the dealers off the street long enough for us to work on this methamphetamine problem. It had bipartisan support. There has not been a single no vote on the bill. I ask for your aye vote.
Very well. Clerk, open the roll. Oh, Mr. Hagman, pardon me, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Vice Chair of Public Safety, I would urge my colleagues to support this bill.
Clerk, open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. All those voters desire to vote. All those voters desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Aye 71, noes 1. Measure passes. Move to file. Pardon me, Mr. DeLeon has some visitors here in the chambers, in the rear of the chamber. Mr. Ben Waisel, President of the San Diego City Council and member of the California Coastal Commission. We'd like to recognize them. Members, please acknowledge our guest in the rear. Thank you for joining us in the chambers. Members will move to file item 96, AB 490. Mr. Smythe, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 96 by Assembly Bill 490 by Assemblymember Smythe, an act relating to pet stores.
Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is an industry-sponsored bill that cleans up legislation from 2007. Very briefly, it exempts agricultural establishments from the definition of pet store and clarifies that they were not intended to be considered stores under the current law. It also sets up the proper euthanasia methods for animals that are in the pet stores, as make sure they're in compliance with veterinary medical guidelines. Again, this is just a cleanup measure from 2007. Request an aye vote.
Seeing or hearing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Aye 67, no 0. Measure passes. We'll move to file item 99, AB 569. Mr. Emerson, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 569 by Assemblymember Emerson, an act relating to employment.
Mr. Emerson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 569 will allow the individuals in the construction and transportation industry who have collective bargaining agreements to follow their collective bargaining agreements with respect to meal and rest periods. This measure will provide some flexibility to various groups that include distributors, waste haulers, bus drivers, and transportation and construction industry. As you know, this is a complex issue and has had a lot of debate since the UPS tried to fix this in 2003. I would like to expand this measure to others, but at this time I believe AB 569 is the right direction, and I would ask for your aye vote. There have been no votes on this, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise in support of Mr. Emerson's bill, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to expand the classes of business that can qualify for meal and break time modification. I think it's a huge issue for the economy. Perhaps there'll be opportunities on the Senate side or through the gubernatorial process. Thank you.
Mr. Emerson.
I vote.
Seeing here no further debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Aye 63. Passes. Move to file item AB 605, Portantino. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 605 by Assemblymember Portantino, an act relating to horse racing and to make an appropriation therefore.
Mr. Portantino.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 605 is a simple bill which will allow thoroughbred horse racing results to be included in propositional pari-mutuel pool wagers. Many of you have read about the struggles of the horse racing industry in California. My district is home to Santa Anita Racetrack, which has had a long and illustrious history to California's thoroughbred racing industry. This bill will allow the use of these types of wagering, which will give a lifeline to the horse racing industry, which is so much a part of the California economy, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All those voters desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close roll, tally the votes. Aye 72, no 0. Measure passes. We'll move to file item 102, AB 999. Mrs. Skinner, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 999 by Assemblymember Skinner, an act relating to juveniles.
Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. AB 999 provides a balanced system of incentives and discipline to our youth that are incarcerated in our Department of Juvenile Justice facilities. It additionally allows youth in our state DJJ facilities to earn earlier parole consideration, not reduced sentence, but earlier parole consideration through their satisfactory participation in education, vocational, and rehabilitation programs. So I want to be clear that it does not provide for early release, but rather it provides the youth the opportunity to earn through their own self-discipline and their participation in these programs an earlier parole consideration hearing. Additionally, AB 999 eliminates the use of time ads, an ineffective disciplinary practice that has contributed to disproportionately long sentences for youth in California. Currently, our youth in DJJ facilities spend on average more time than any youth in any of our 49 other states. Data from the state CDCR finds that a full third of the time spent in the DJJ facilities is due to this time ad issue. On average, the youth are getting 12 months of additional time. Again, AB 999 does not provide for early release. As is provided to adults, it purely allows for the consideration at for an earlier parole hearing. It is incremental, and it's a balanced approach that would also save the state a good deal of money in this very serious deficit time. I urge your aye vote.
Mr. Hackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This is a tricky situation. We're all looking at the budget deficit, but let's remind you who's in custody right now at the California Youth Authorities. We had, maybe even 10 years ago, we had over 10,000 youth in those facilities, and right now we have close to 1,200 or 1,400 of the most serious crimes that committed by our youth. The rest have been passed down to their county jails. So we're dealing with a very small population. The practice of time ads has been going back for a long time. It's kind of like the same thing as a carrot and a stick. Use the carrot, you reward good behavior. Use the stick, and you punish the bad behavior. The add-ons are the bad behavior. We need to keep those tools in the toolbox for our correctional officers and our professionals dealing with these youth. And this provision would stop any kind of prolongment of their sentence, even for the most egregious violations while they're in custody. We're going through rehabilitation. The whole purpose of our locking these young folks up is to rehabilitate them, and they have to be going through the process. When you do good, you do reward them. When they do bad, you take that, you add on penalties. This would take away those penalties. I respectfully ask for a no vote.
Mr. Nielsen.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, I do respectfully rise in opposition. I appreciate the noble intent of the author, but I must tell you that from very extensive personal experience with this particular universe, these youth, very sadly, are the worst. The best, or the lesser dangerous, are out in the communities already under local probation authority. They are the worst, and they do misbehave. I have been assaulted by them. I've had them blow up in hearings and throw tape recorders at me. They do have enormous issues that need to be addressed. And sometimes that has to be addressed in a negative way, that there is a consequence for negative behavior. This would be a very serious error and send a very wrong message to those youth that misbehave while incarcerated or choose not to be amenable to their treatment regimens. In addition, though not mandatory, this does create a presumption and will put pressure on what was called then the Youthful Offender Parole Board to find these individuals suitable earlier. It will be used by their advocates that the legislature says you will let them out earlier. Although the bill doesn't say that, that pressure will be on the board. And therefore justice is severely compromised because they need to serve their full just time. And this further, ladies and gentlemen, is a huge affront to the victims of their criminal activities. I urge a no vote.
Ms. Skinner, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is true. There are the youth that are in our DJJ facilities are quite serious offenders. I will not minimize that. But the sentencing system that we have for the Department of Juvenile Justice is an indeterminate sentencing. So the youth are sentenced for a minimum time, and the length of time they serve is dependent on their good performance. So when they go before a parole hearing, if they have performed in the manner that was just addressed by my colleague, they are not released. So while this bill would eliminate the correctional officer's ability to use the time ads, it does not allow youth to get out earlier if they are in bad behavior. It just removes this one particular tool in the correctional officer's toolbox. The correctional officer still has many ways to either punish or act on egregious actions by these youth. So this bill does not minimize their sentencing nor let them out early. It just doesn't guarantee that they're given time ads without other considerations. The Appropriations Committee has estimated that the measure will save up to $290 million annually, and the money alone is enough to reestablish programs that are being proposed to be cut in this upcoming May revision, such as the zeroing out of academic preparation outreach programs, the elimination of domestic violence prevention programs, and others. And again, I respectfully urge your aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Ms. Skinner moves a call. Members, I'm going to move to item 154, the consent calendar. We're at the second day's consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none and hearing none, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1272 by Assemblymember Hill, an act relating to public health.
Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Okay. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Ayes 71, noes 0. Consent calendar is approved. The further remainder of the consent calendar? Until we do the last vote change. Members, I'm going to lift the call on file item 54. Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 45, noes 27. Measure passes. Members, we can lift the call on file item 102. Clerk will open the roll. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. All those vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 45, noes 29. Measure passes. Members will now move to adjourn in memory. Assemblymember Hall.
Members, I rise today to adjourn in memory of Ida Charles. Ida Charles was a legendary employee working under the Speaker Willie Brown's administration. Ida worked for Mr. Brown for almost 20 years. She has been described as an office manager, a gatekeeper, a mother figure, and a right arm. By all accounts, she was a consummate professional and showed enormous grace and dignity and inspired those qualities in others. Ida Charles touched the lives of many in the Capitol who worked for Speaker Brown, including our very own Dotson Wilson. To a person, they remember her with great affection, and they also remember her with great respect. The memorial service for Ida Charles is next Tuesday. Please join me in adjourning in her memory and in offering our condolences to her family and to her extended family here in the Capitol. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Assemblymember Brownlee.
Mr. De Leon is going to be adjourning for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. De Leon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I rise to adjourn in the memory of Rose Margolis Goldberg, who passed away last Saturday at the age of 98. She was the mother of our former colleague of the California State Assembly, Jackie Goldberg. Rose was the oldest of 7 children when she was born in 1911. She dreamed of becoming a teacher, but her initial job searches were rebuffed because she was, in fact, a Jew. In fact, her father, a rabbi, became the first kosher meat cutter in the city of Los Angeles. After Rose identified herself as a Unitarian in her job applications, she quickly landed a position with the Los Angeles Unified School District. She taught there for more than 40 years, primarily at Amestoy Elementary School. At that time, Amestoy had a very large population of Japanese American students, and Rose was particularly moved by those of Japanese ancestry that were sent to the internment camps such as Manzanar. She taught by example that one should always strive to live one's principles and to be motivated by love for oneself and others. Rose was well liked by all those who knew her. She provided a quiet, steady leadership wherever she went. Her husband of 52 years, Edward Goldberg, preceded her in death in 1989. Please join me in condolences to Rose's family, her daughter, again, our former colleague of the California State Assembly for the 45th Assembly District, the district that I represent today, Jackie, her son, Arthur Goldberg, and her 5 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon. Mr. Krikorian. Mr. Logue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise, it's a sad day because Specialist Jeremiah McCleary gave his life while defending his country May 2nd, 2009 in Iraq. This was his first tour overseas since he joined the Army in 2007. Jeremiah was born in Glendora, California, parents of Colette and Joe McCleary. April 5th, 1985, he was immediately adored and spoiled by his older sisters, Lynette and Chastity. He grew up in a very close family who both worked hard and played hard together. Jeremiah moved with his family to Portola in the winter of 1996 after living in Southern California his whole life. The family worked together to build the home of their dreams with their bare hands on a beautiful piece of land in the Portola area. The hard work and difficult times only brought the family closer. They were inseparable. In school, Jeremiah adjusted to the move well, made friends easily. He was well known for telling jokes and seeing the humor in life. It was rare to see Jeremiah without a smile on his face and a twinkle in his eye. He enjoyed the outdoors, spent a great deal of time fishing, camping, and working on his truck. Chris Gardner, Brian Allen were his great friends. Jeremiah wanted to join the Army since he was 4 years old. He enlisted in June 2007 at Fort Hood, Texas. He met Jake Veloza and 2 became close friends. They seemed to be joined at the hip. It was Texas where Jeremiah met and fell in love with his girlfriend. Both Jeremiah and Jake were shot and killed in Mosul, Iraq. Jeremiah had a deep love for his country and a need to be a part of something great. He lived with integrity and served with honor. Jeremiah is survived by his father, Joe McCleary, his 2 sisters, and Sabero. Also his nephews, Christopher Matthew Flanagan. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to close in their honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Salas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I would like to adjourn in the memory of my dear friend, Roberto Martinez. Roberto Martinez died on May 20th at the age of 72 at his home in Chula Vista after battling diabetes for many years. In his second career, Roberto was the director of the American Friends Service Committee U.S.-Mexico Border Program. He was nationally known champion of civil rights for the thousands of immigrants who daily crossed the Tijuana-San Diego border. He truly did God's work by defending the human rights of citizens and non-citizens alike. In 1992, he became the first U.S. citizen to be commended by the Human Rights Watch. Roberto was a fifth-generation Mexican-American who grew up in the barrios of downtown San Diego. He often spoke about his experiences that as a teenager, he was often stopped and occasionally arrested by the police or Border Patrol despite being a United States citizen. In a bedside ceremony, the Mexican government awarded him the prestigious Ochil Medal in recognition of his long career working on the behalf of immigrants. Roberto retired from the American Friends Service Committee in 2002 after more than 30 years of advocating for the rights of the poor, the voiceless, and the disenfranchised. May he rest in peace. We extend our sympathies and prayers to his wife Yolanda and his children and grandchildren. The entire community of San Diego will sorely miss this honest, caring, and gentle, loving man. Thank you.
Members, when we adjourn, the Transportation Committee will meet in room 4202. Ms. Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I will adjourn in memory today for a former mayor of Richmond, James Kenney. James Kenney had the nickname of Big Jim, and he was known for being larger than life. James was the son of John Kenney, who was an Irish immigrant who helped found the city of Richmond in 1905. And instead of college, James Jr. joined the Civilian Conservation Corps and later served in the United States Navy during World War II in both the European and Pacific campaigns. After serving as mayor of Richmond, he was elected to the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors and was re-elected 4 times to serve a total of 20 years. In his 20 years of services on the board, he was a very strong supporter of the construction of BART, our mass transit system in the Bay Area, and he is survived by his son Jack, his daughter-in-law, his grandsons, and great-granddaughters, and I respectfully ask for this adjournment in memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Skinner. Members, the session schedule is as follows. On Friday, there's no floor session and no check-in. Monday, Memorial Day. Tuesday, floor session is from 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. Wednesday, floor session upon call of the speaker and check-in. Thursday, floor session will be from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. I'm now ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. A journey, it has been a journey, huh? Ms. Evans moves, Mr. Blakesley seconds. This House stands adjourned until Tuesday, 11 p.m., 11 a.m. Come in at 11 p.m. Oops.
Smythe vote change, file item 21, AB 474, no to aye.
Smythe, AB 474, no to aye.
Smythe vote change, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Smythe, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Yeah, Berry Hill, vote change. File 151, no to not voting. T. Berry Hill.
Tom Berryhill, file item 151, no to not voting.
B. Berry Hill, file 151, aye to not voting.
Bill Berryhill, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Emerson, file item 151, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Emerson, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Mendoza, item file 39, aye to no, voting no.
Mendoza, file item 39, aye to no. AB 492.
Monning, file 39, AB 492, changing from aye to not voting.
Monning, AB 492, aye to not voting.
Harkey, file number 30, change from not voting to aye.
Harkey, file item 30, not voting to aye. AB
File-
1400.
Harkey, file number 96, AB 490, not voting to aye.
Harkey, Assembly Bill 490, not voting to aye.
Thank you. Okay.
Garrick, file item 151, SB 61, vote change from aye to not voting.
Garrick, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Knight, file number 151, Senate Bill 61, from aye to not voting.
Knight, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Nastandi, vote change, item 151, SB 61, change from aye to not voting.
Nastande, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Jeffries, vote change, item 151, SB 61, from aye to not voting.
Jeffries, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Nava, item number 76, AB 746, aye to not voting.
Nava, AB 746, aye to not voting.
Fletcher, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Fletcher, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Gilmore, file item 20, AB 888, changing vote no to aye.
Gilmore, AB 888, no to aye.
And file number 151, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Gilmore, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Hagman, file item 151, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Hagman, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Salas, AB 492, aye to not voting.
Salas, AB 492, aye to not voting.
Strickland, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Strickland, SB 61, aye to not voting.
And AB 1080, aye to no.
Strickland, AB 1080, aye to no.
Tran, item 151, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Tran, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Portantino, file item 70, AB 640, aye to not voting. Item 70.
Portantino, file item 70.
Logue, file 151, SB 61, from aye to not voting. Okay.
Portantino, file item 70, aye to not voting.
That's right. File 51, SB 61, Dan Logue, from aye to not voting. Thank you.
Logue, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
DeVore, file item 151, SB 61, aye to not voting.
DeVore, SB 61, aye to not voting.
Cook, file item 151, SB 61, from aye to not voting.
Cook, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
VM Perez, file item 39, AB 492, aye to not voting. VM
V.
Perez.
Manuel Perez, file AB 492, aye to not voting.
V. Manuel Perez, file item 54, AB 632, aye to not voting.
V. Manuel Perez, file item 54, aye to not voting.
Gene Fuller, file item 151, aye to not voting.
Fuller, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Blakesley, file item 151, SB 61, aye, not voting.
Blakesley, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Jones, file item 91, AB 362, aye to not voting.
Jones, AB 362, aye to not voting. Mr. Belines.
My guys are all doing the 151, right? Yeah. File item. Okay. What am I doing? I'm going aye to no vote. I think I'm good. I'm good, thanks.
Valines, SB 61, file item 151, aye to not voting.
Valines, SB 61, aye to not voting.
All right, Gaines, file item 151, Senate Bill 61, from aye to not voting.
Gaines, Senate Bill 61, aye to not voting.
Okay, and okay, great.
Assembly Bill 1129.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1286.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 18.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 810.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1582.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 32.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 172.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 254.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 349.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 356.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 398.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 404.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 472.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 519.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 557.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 644.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 667.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 673.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 708.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 800.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 818.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 830.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 839.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 879.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 894.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 914.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 955.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1051.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1084.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1099.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1123.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1216.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1240.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1245.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1249.
Aye 71, noes none.
Assembly Bill 1274 with urgency.
Aye 71, noes none. Okay, aye 71 knows none on the urgency. Aye 71 knows none on the bill.
Assembly Bill 1311.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1395.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1444.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1448.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1462.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1465.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 203.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1567.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1577.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 234.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 389.
Aye 71 knows none.
Assembly Bill 1569.
Aye 71 knows none.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 33.
Aye 71 knows none.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 27.
Aye 71 knows none.
And Senate Concurrent Resolution 28.
Aye 71 knows none. Great. Thank you.